Let's talk about another main topic tonight. We talked about it a little bit earlier. So yeah, we'll just go to each of them because they've gone back and forth on Twitter a little bit, not fighting necessarily or anything like that. Because I don't think Sami would really get in fights. But, Westcott crypto types, I guess I'll say. And what I mean by that is people who are, hey, 10,000x, this ecosystem's doing a 10,000x. We already saw Hex do it. Richard has said it'll do it. I'm not stopping at anything less than a 10,000x. And anything below that, you're an idiot for calling it, that low. Sami, on the other hand, as he has seen some of the things happen in this market, the price has been suppressed for so long, all these different events that have gone on, people being pissed off about PulseX and single-sided staking and yada, 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 the Hex debate, whatever else. But Sami types adjusting their, narrative down to, well, he's just basically pulling the crowd, which we've done here tonight. And I know I purposely made the options very spread out on the PulseChain ecosystem price predictions, and we'll look at that in a minute. But he's basically saying, hey, if the consensus by most people is 100x at this point, I have to lower my targets and assume like a 30 to 50x, just because where the crowd is, I'm not going to go as high as that. Looking at what we put in the chat tonight, so for the poll, and again, I purposely made it wildly different, but so we had 30x from here, 500x from here for the PulseChain ecosystem, or a 10,000x. It's actually relatively split amongst the three, to my surprise. The majority is just a 30x right now at 40%. 33% are saying 500x, which that would be kind of in line with what a lot of people were thinking, I think, from even back when this launched, maybe. And then 27% are saying 10,000x at the moment. So I don't know what that necessarily means. But then it also begs the question, and there's so much kind of game theory to this, but I mean, if Sami is thinking, 100x is what the crowd is saying, that I'm going to say 30 to 50. What if the crowd now has this short-term bias and is upset about all these things, and we don't know what's in store for the next couple of years, and they're drastically low to the downside, and we do get that 500x from here or something like that. Like we talked about earlier, psychologically, I want to plan for the worst, and I'm putting in everything that I can right now. And I know that there's no other place I'd rather be in crypto. So I know that's true for me either way. But what do you make of this, Ewok? I mean, like, just looking at, you don't have to necessarily go into Westcott or Sami specifically, but just those kind of combative views and what your stance is on it.
Yeah, the one bad thing about underestimating, I was thinking about this earlier, is that people think it's reached where it's going, and they try to take profits, and it continues to go further. That's the problem with underestimating, is when you think you may have the top and you sell, and then it keeps running and you've got nothing left and you got to buy back in. That's one of the hard parts about underestimating. Again, I think Sami is just playing it safe. I don't think he wants to be known as one of those moon boys. Has he done it on other things? Yeah, maybe. But again, it's more of a conservative estimate. And I think he would rather undershoot than overshoot anyway. So I just think that's where he's at. But like I said, the problem with undershooting is people hit that target and think that that's it. And we know, even when Hex made its run up the first time, it did between 60 and 80% pullbacks 7-8 times, maybe more. During that run up. And I think a lot of people got left behind because they thought, oh, that's it. Oh, that's it. And it just kept going. It kept, it doubled in price 13, 14 times. So, that's the problem. That's, people, instead of dollar costing out the same way they dollar costed in during a cycle, they're going to get in trouble. So just be careful.
Well, to your point right there, Ewok, yeah, like if they're shooting low and it's like, oh shit, I started a DCA out at a 30x and now look what's happening. Well, I just kind of already answered the question I was going to say, but we're not talking about like selling your whole stack at the 30x. But if you're planning on a 30x, I don't think you could be that pissed at yourself if you took out 10% at that point or something, and let's face this too. I mean, we're just saying here right now in 2023, pointing at a random date on a calendar when maybe we hit that theoretical 30x or whatever it is. You're going to have all these different market conditions happening at the time. So it's not like you're going to be totally in the dark as to like, oh, are we still going up or are we going to go down? I mean, like there's going to be plenty of things indicating to you where we're going. I mean, you even think back to the big shifts in this overall market. If you look at our streams in January of this year, I had turned bullish, figured that the bottom was in. It was saying that pretty hardcore from the beginning of January. Ewok wasn't. So, take that as you will. But, you will see the tides turning months in advance or weeks in advance, and you're going to have some kind of an indication. So just because we're here right now, don't think like, oh, my God, I got to make sure I hit it on the day. And what if I miss it? There's going to be plenty of clues, I think, as to where the market's headed, and you can DCA out. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of having that 10,000x expectation. And if a guy like Westcott, if that's what he's talking about for the long term, possibilities for this ecosystem, okay. I mean, I don't really have any issues with that. Right. But I think most people, when they're having this discussion, are talking about this cycle. I know that's what we're referencing, and I think that's what most people are referencing, because let's face it, cycles in crypto are like a goddamn car wreck. I mean, it's it's not as if, oh man, I'm down like 10% over the last couple of years. I mean, you are going to be down 85% on whatever your portfolio is if you did not get out of the market. So that's why people are so serious about wanting to get it right.
Yeah, and Mr. Chinks brings it up too. It depends on how long term your mindset is, right? What happens now in this cycle may not matter in 10 years. Could be a very tiny blip on a very large chart. So, if you can delay gratification, then it really doesn't matter what you've withstood as far as drawbacks or pullbacks go. It's eventually going to hit that 10,000x. We all think, at least that's what it was designed to do. And that's what I would stick with.
Yeah, I'm with you. Interesting comment here from Red Bull Green Bear. You're missing the point, broke boy. It's not a 10,000x expectation. It's a promise, a fantasy, a story, and you need to understand how you can modulate that as a commentator. Get more. Okay, I think I see what he's saying here. Being sarcastic. So yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, if people want to, I don't see the value in nobody knows what's going to happen. So I don't want to say lying to your audience. I mean, sure, I create clickbait thumbnails on purpose to get people to click that do involve numbers sometimes, but very rarely, the 10,000x variety. So I understand trying to get an audience and stuff like that. But yeah, I would much rather not have that as a realistic expectation.
Yeah. So. And I would be careful using the word promise. It just,
right.
It can go very badly. Expectation is one thing, but promise, you're not going to ever hear Richard saying, I promise it'll do 10,000x. And he's the one that designed it. So I don't like to say I promise either.
Yeah, definitely not promise. Yeah, I got what you're saying there, man. No worries.